Welcome again. Thank you so much for joining us today on Bloomerang Academy, where we are talking about major gifts prospects and moves management. Joining us today is my partner in crime, Di Cox, who is our resident database consultant at Bloomerang. Together, we are known as Di Squared, but I'm always happy to have her here in Academy. She's been with Bloomerang 2.5 years now, but she has been working with nonprofits much longer than that. Thank you for joining us today, Di.
Thanks for having me, Diana, and thanks everyone for coming today. Like Diana said, my name is also Diana. I go by Di, and we are Di or Diana Squared. So we love doing Academy together, and I'm really excited to talk to you guys today about major gifts. Uh, for those of you who were with us on Tuesday, there's going to be a brief review of what we covered. For everybody who wasn't with us on Tuesday, we have linked out the deeper dive into identifying your major gift prospects. So that will be available for you. Let me get my screen shared and we will start going through this. All right, can everyone see?
I can see your screen.
Perfect. All right. So our agenda today, so we're going to start with major gifts. What are they? Why they're important? We'll discuss donor cultivation. We're also going to go into Bloomerang, and we will talk a little bit about tracking our major gift prospects. We will also talk about moves management tracking and the whole process that goes along with that. We will also discuss donor stewardship and retention. That's a huge piece of the major gifts prospect. What do you do once you have secured your major gift? And then, like Diana said, we'll have some resources. So let's start by discussing major gifts. At its core, a major gift is the largest one-time gift or potentially pledges that an organization can reasonably expect to receive. The number, so the amount of your major gift, varies wildly and is very specific to each organization. Um, some organizations, a major gift is $1,000, some it's $100,000, some it's higher, some it's lower. So wherever you are and what you can reasonably expect from your donors is what a major gift should be. This is also a moving target. So as your donor retention improves annually, as you start bringing in major gifts to the organization, this number will change and you'll need to reevaluate these numbers probably annually at first until things kind of stabilize, you've figured it out and you can go from there. Um, as a note, a transformational gift is a kind of major gift, but it's a gift that is above and beyond. It's more of an investment in the organization. They can be several times the size of what you would consider to be a major gift. And I would say that it's an unreasonable expectation. So if your donor base is usually, giving a major gift around $1,000, having an expectation to be bringing in $10,000 gifts or $50,000 gifts is probably unreasonable. Um, but it's the kind of gift that does happen. And they're the kinds of gifts that can truly support your mission in a really sustainable way. Um, People will create endowments with transformational gifts, sometimes new staff positions. And then they can also sustain current programs or create new programs for the organization. Again, so there is a size difference here, and what we're going to be focusing on is that major gift. Um, Major gifts should be a really important part of your long-term development plan and allow you to plan more than a year ahead for expenses. So if you know that you are going to be asking for, a $5,000 gift, you should have a plan for that money. Even if the plan is it's going to support our annual fund or a program, for example, have a plan for it. The more that you can plan for that, the more that you can talk about what you're going to do with it, the more you can get your potential major donor really excited about giving the gift. They like we talked about with transformational gifts, an endowment fund or a rainy day fund. is an important thing. So if you are not expecting any transformational gifts, but you're working on a couple of major gifts, potentially pooling those major gifts and creating a rainy day fund could be important to your organization. They can get you through pandemics, recessions, or just really rough fundraising years. Um, so that's something important to be aware of as well. Just make sure that you have a plan for that money and that you know what you're asking for. Um, Another important marker that major gifts measure is constituent buy-in to the organization and to your mission. Anyone willing to part with a large sum of money has to truly believe that their money can be used as a force of good, and your staff and your organization are the vehicle for that good. So ensuring that you're properly cultivating your pool of potential major donors is what will generate that excitement, that viability for those gifts. And again, having that plan is going to make sure that they are bought in and they are excited. Um, Something else that we will talk more about later on, but I did make a note in the slide. Um, Starting major giving programs can initially have a negative impact on your donor retention. Not always, but most people will be taking their major donor prospects out of annual fund efforts, so regular appeals, um, and that way they can make that larger ask instead of having that person saying, "But I just gave you $300 last month to your appeal." Um, the impact of a major or even a transformative gift can be bigger for the organization, and it's worth more than their individual responses to appeal letters. So it's not something to stress about, just be aware of it, and plan for that. If your donor retention rate hovers around the industry standard, which is 45%, and you're going to be taking some really consistent donors out of your appeal pool to be asking them for a major gift at the beginning of next year, that might dip a little bit, but it's a temporary dip and it's okay. So, something else to note here, for the purposes of prospect and moves management, I don't recommend using the words cultivation and stewardship interchangeably, even though in the nonprofit space, they are used interchangeably. Um, I believe firmly that cultivation is relationship building and stewardship is relationship management. So, a really good, easy analogy to think of is cultivation is like dating, and stewardship is like dating after you're married. Both are absolutely necessary, but one happens post commitment. And a major gift is a commitment. So, you need to keep dating those donors. You need to keep stewarding them. You need to keep working on them. But that commitment's already there, the buy-in's already there, so it changes a little bit on how you go about that. Uh, we're not going to be talking about generating your prospect lists on this call in depth. Again, we do have the link to the video on how to do that. We have the other class on it. But I do want to point out a few things here. So, your prospect list has to be a manageable size for your solicitors to handle because cultivation can take time for each donor. So, I would really recommend starting out with just a handful for each solicitor and adjust there based on their overall role at the organization. And a question I always get asked when I teach this class is, okay, but how do we scale for our size? So it's easy to scale for your size. If you are a really small organization, um, let's say there are two people that are working there, you can scale it by choosing just two prospects to start with. If you have a more active board and you're a really small organization, you can really leverage those board relationships and turn your board into solicitors for some major gifts as well, which takes the pressure off of you and generates some more buy-in for your mission from the board. For medium to larger nonprofits that might have a major gift officer, your major gift officer should have a much larger portfolio to manage than a brand new board member or a development officer who is, doing data entry or, has other fundraising responsibilities. So your major gift officers, your EDs, development directors, and board members are going to have the larger share of your prospects. Not everybody needs one, not everybody needs a handful, but everybody can prospect major donors. So regardless of who's managing the prospect, every one of your prospects should have a personal cultivation plan in place so that everyone on the team knows what the plan is to move them through from beginning of that major donor prospect to actually receiving that major gift and turning them into a major donor. So over on the right here where it says create a cultivation plan, that is the really simple template. And we do have that available on the template section of our website. And again, it's linked in our resources. If you are using Bloomerang software, you can just copy and paste this directly into a moves management note, which will generate for each prospect. And I will show you what that looks like here in a few minutes. As an additional reminder to Bloomerang customers, an easy way to generate a potential prospect list is to run a constituent report and filter for a high engagement score as well as a high donor search generosity score. So when we're taking a look at this, your engagement level shows the constituents' engagement with the organization. So it's looking at information that you are adding to the database. It's donation amounts, but also donation trends. So upgrades, downgrades, year-over-year giving. And it's also looking at interactions. Are you logging your phone calls? Are they reaching out to you? Are you logging volunteer activities? Are you noting when they receive appeal letters? All of that. Your generosity score is showing the engagement level with organizations beyond your organizations. So donor search generates that number, and they're using publicly available records to glean that information. So again, there's more information on that in the resources slide. We do the full class on identifying your major donors. And we'll talk about a little bit more of this later, but I did want to make this clear for the Bloomerang users. So at this point, I'm going to click over to my Bloomerang database, and we are going to walk through this process. So what I've done already is I've identified a potential major donor in my database. So my major donor prospect is Nora Wexley. So that's already taken care of, went through the other class, identified some prospects. We're going to be working primarily with her. So there are some fields in Bloomerang that you'll need to set up first to be able to properly track this. So I will say that I have all of the kind of potential options that you can use here. Some people think this is overkill and choose to use bits and pieces of that, and this is fine. Modify it to be your own. So first, we're going to go into the constituent custom fields. And you can see that I have a prospect management system set up in here. So I did a new category specific for my prospect management, and then I've added these fields. Again, some people don't think it's appropriate to have giving capacity, target ask date, all right there on the profile tab of their account. So it's absolutely fine to save that for your note. But what I do recommend having is the solicitor listed so that if this donor calls in, we know who their primary solicitor is for major gifts. Target ask date and target ask amount, that's something that you've identified during the discovery phase. Same with giving capacity. So you have taken a look at their record, you've decided how much you're going to ask and when you think it would be appropriate to ask them for that gift. So that's those fields. Impact area, right now I have this in as a free form field. Depending on what your organization does, it might make more sense to have it as a drop down. But this is just saying what parts of the organization are they interested in. If they're just interested overall in your mission, then asking for an unrestricted gift is not out of line. But if there's a program or a service that you offer that is really, really near and dear to their heart, that's something important to note, and potentially asking for the major gifts specific to that program or that area of support that you offer might be a better way to harness that gift, harness the power of that donor, and really make them feel like their gift matters and that they're making the impact they want to be making. So again, these are some options here for the prospect management section on your constituent custom fields. On transaction custom fields, you can see that I have a little project management or prospect management, I'm sorry, section here. Again, we have solicitor. This will not automatically populate between custom fields. So when someone does secure a gift, I would recommend tagging the solicitor on the gift. If you are also working with planned giving, marking something as a bequest can be really helpful. Also helpful things are having a potential campaign or appeal specific for bequests as well. We do have an entire planned giving class, so I'm not going to dive too deep into that, but this might be a field that you would find helpful for your organization. And then the other one I have here, I would really only recommend creating this one if you're going to be creating a pledge for your potential gift down the line. So some organizations choose to do this. Um, it doesn't really matter which way you do it, but it is an option. So we have an opportunity field here for open, which means you're working on it. They're in the moves management process. Closed, which means you did not get the gift, you were not able to secure it, and they're no longer in a move process. And one is that they gave the gift. Some people would also choose to say partially won. If you ask for 25,000 and they offer you 15, take the money. But you didn't get that full gift that you were hoping to secure. So again, modify this, call these fields what you want, do with it what you need to do with it for your organization. And then interaction, there's only one and its current stage. Again, potential overkill, but potentially also really helpful depending on how robust your reporting is at your organization and how built out your moves management program is. So we have discovery, cultivation, the ask step, and then stewardship. And then most importantly are your notes custom fields. So I'm going to move this information to the top so that we're not scrolling while we go through this class. But these fields are going to be pretty important here. So again, you can see I have the target, ask date, and amount. So if you don't want that on the constituent record, just drop it here. That's absolutely fine. We have that solicitor field again. Again, I know it feels like overkill to have it in a couple of different places, but the solicitor for major gifts may not be the same every time you ask for a major gift. So having the history of who was the solicitor and who may have been a more successful solicitor can be really helpful when deciding strategy to make that next ask. We also have the current stage. It's the same current stages that you saw on the interactions, with the exception of permission to ask, which we'll talk about in a minute. But you'll see that everything should have a stage on it. And so again, call them what you want to call them, but these are the basic stages. And then finally, get amount or one amount. You can call it whatever you want to here, but just because you have a target ask does not mean that they're going to give you that amount. There are some organizations that start working on a cultivation plan and they're going to ask for $10,000 and they're able to get someone so excited that they just offer up a higher number. You would plan to make that ask in 6 months, and at an event they just decide to write a very large check or make a very large pledge, and you haven't even had to do much through your cultivation plan. So make sure that you're also recording the amount that you also received off of it, most especially if you are not using pledges as a method of tracking this. And then a couple of other things to consider. I would recommend an appeal for a major gift ask. And the reason for that is two reasons. One, it separates gifts that are just coming in through appeals or events, that sort of thing. And if you're using a pledge, then it's easy to filter that out if you're audited. Most pledges are that promise of money. You're using this as a placeholder. Um, a lot of auditors are very well aware that people will use pledges as placeholders, and they just don't want that in the report if you get audited. They don't want to see what you're expecting to get. They want to see what you have actually been promised, what you have actually received. Um, some people will also create a campaign specific for major gifts, because those longer term asks may not happen in a calendar year. And if it's a year over year pledge that they promise you, then having to keep a 2017 annual campaign open just so that you can be making the pledge payments for the next couple of years is pretty pointless. So having that campaign open for major gifts can be helpful, and then you can just adjust that fund for whenever that gift comes in and you know where it's going, either program specific, restricted, that sort of thing, or if it's just going to an unrestricted gift. So those are kind of the things to be aware of and to be ready to set up. And I really recommend thinking through what you're going to do. Again, depending on the kind of asks you're making, it may or may not make a lot of sense to be doing a separate campaign, especially if you're not asking for multi-year pledges, or if you're going to be asking for all of your gifts before the end of your calendar year every year. So just some things to consider, fields to set up. And then once they're set up, we are going to use a mix of notes, interactions, and tasks to stay on top of our major gift moves management. So we are going to come in to Nora here, and we have already identified her. We have already decided that she is going to be a prospect for our major gifts program. So I'm going to come into her profile and I'm going to edit it. And we're going to add a few things here. So I do have an attributes field for my major gifts prospects. This will make it easier again when I want to remove her from my appeals letters or special asks or anything else I'm doing with that. It will also help if you do sort of a VIP program for your major donors, your board members at events. So she can be on special lists to get special access so that we can work on that relationship and really be able to cultivate that gift. And we can exclude her when needed. So major gift prospect. And then I'm going to come down to this prospect management section. So we are going to set her up with Sabine to be her solicitor. We are also going to pick a target ask date. Again, I realize this is overkill. I'm just going to fill it out so you guys can see it. So our target ask date, we are going to do it at our big event in November. So 11/15/2021. And our target ask amount, we've taken a look at everything and we've decided that we're going to make a $10,000 ask. So for our organization, this is a major gift, not transformational. Impact area, she really cares about veterans. She's a veteran herself, so we're going to say veterans. And her giving capacity is actually much higher than this. So we're going to say her giving capacity is probably closer to $50,000 based on the information that we know. But we're going to make that smaller ask now and make a bigger ask in a couple of years. So that's how we've decided to strategize this out. So once this is set up, you have some options. So either if your solicitors all have access to Bloomerang, I would have Sabine come in and set up the note. If you are not giving all of your solicitors access to Bloomerang, whoever does have access would go in and set this up. So I'm going to go ahead and set it up for Sabine since she's not here and she's a fictional Star Wars character. And I'm going to save this. And then I'm going to come here and I'm going to create a new note on her profile. So I'm going to date this note for that target ask date. So I want it kind of pinned to the top of the timeline, future dated. So again, that ask is going to be on 11/15/2021. So when I come into this note, I'm going to date it for 11/15/2021. So 11/15/2021. And then again, you're going to have that personal cultivation plan. So I'm going to copy and paste it. And these are a couple of steps that we require everybody to do, all of our solicitors. Some organizations may have requirements, some organizations may not. Some may base it on the relationship, who's the solicitor. There are a lot of factors that go into this, but we require a capacity determination, a first solicitor contact, and determining that impact area, which may or may not happen before that solicitor contact. So we are going to say that we've already done these steps. So we determined capacity last month. So we're going to say 520. And we also determined that impact area already. We have a relationship with her. So this was done on 520 when we talked to her. And that first solicitor contact happened after that date. So our solicitor, Sabine, reached out to Nora and got coffee with her because in my pretend world, there was no COVID. So this happened on 5/30. So I'm adding the dates here for reporting purposes. You'll see it in a few minutes. But these have happened. And then what happens next here, since this step has happened, we need to note it. So we need to create an interaction for it. So Sabine would create this interaction and the date on the interaction should match this date. So 5/30/2021. So new interaction, 5/30 2021, and the subject was first solicitor contact. And again, if we're using the moves management custom fields for interactions, this would have been during discovery. So you can fill that out if you need it. The purpose is going to be impact cultivation, and the channel was in person. And then this is where we would add notes about that interaction. So grabbed coffee, talked about life, invited on a tour. So we know that she invited her on a tour of the facility. She accepted and then scheduled out. So we're going to save this. So now we need to add a task for Sabine so that she remembers if there's a tour coming up. So now we're going to go into new task. And we are going to date this for the date of the tour. So the tour is going to be on 6/10. And so we will say tour of the facility. And we would assign this to Sabine. As you can see, she doesn't have the ability to do it because she doesn't have a login, but we'll pretend that Leia here it's fine. And the purpose again will be impact cultivation and the channel is going to be in person. So we are going to save this task. And on the timeline, you can now see this pretty blue box. So this tells us there's an open task. We can also come out and we can see what tasks are open here. So we're going to say all tasks 12. We want to see what's due later or due soon. And we can see the tour of the facility. Again, the user should be Sabine, but we can see who the constituent is. We can see it's in person. Purpose is impact cultivation. So let's say it's 6:10 now. So we are going to come in here and we are going to click into this and we have two options at this point. So we'll make notes obviously about what was talked about, what was decided, if anything, next steps, any kind of details here that are helpful, you're going to enter them here. If this were a task where it's just a to-do item, so something like draft an email or, schedule something, then you would complete that task as a task. And this is what would happen. You would put the completed date. So we would say 6/10. And then when we go back onto Nora's timeline here, you can see that it has a checkbox. So that the task was completed. The other option that we have, so I'm going to reactivate this task, and you can see we're back to this little blue box. We can save this as an interaction, and it will actually create that interaction for us. So we can come in here and save as interaction. And then the completed date, you'll say which date this happened on. And then it is now going to save as an interaction. So that's really important to see so that you know what's happening here. I also don't think that I saved that note before I closed it. So I'm going to go in really quickly and recreate my notes. You should save your notes. So we determined capacity. We had the first solicitor contact. This was 5:30. We did the impact area on 5:20. And then we have done a site visit. So we are officially in this cultivation stage. So when we click down, instead of TBD, it'll say for site visit, and we've completed it. So 6/10/2021. And the date here should be 11/15/2021. So now that we've switched into this cultivation stage, we're going to change it to cultivation. Again, you would fill all of this out. I'm going to leave it blank. And so now you can see that note, open opportunity, personal cultivation plan. All of the dates in here should coincide, potentially with the exception of discovery, with an interaction on their timeline. And then based on how things go, the next step would be decided on what to do. So we did the site visit. So Sabine has decided that she's going to follow up with an email next. So follow up with email, and she's going to do that on 6/12. And then again, we save this. And then we come up and we create that next task for her to complete. So she's going to send an email on 6/12. Send site visit follow-up email. And then again, impact cultivation. Channel is now going to be email. And we will save this. There's an open task. We have the report. So this is what that workflow looks like. So you walk through it, you can manage what's going on, you have all of that information, you see that open opportunity. If you'd like to see what a closed opportunity looks like when one is fully fleshed out, when you've completed it, we can go to Boba Fett's record. So if we go to Boba's record, we can see it's a messy timeline. That's okay. But if we click over here, we can distill it down to just what we're looking for. And so we can look just at notes. So you can see that there was a one opportunity back in 2020, and that we have put Boba Fett back into this pipeline. We're going to be asking for another major gift. So if we click into this note, we can see it was a one opportunity. We can see all of the dates things were completed. We can see every single task that happened. We can see the gift was secured, and we can see what happened as far as stewardship went. And then if we cancel out of here, all of those should match an interaction. So 5/20, there was an interaction. So if we go down to 5/20, so we're in 2021, scroll down to 2020, May 20th, we can see met with the ED, talked about some board interest stuff, discussed commitment. So we've got all of our notes and we can see specifically what happened in that meeting with the ED. So that is how you work it. You can see everything happening here. And then you can see this red box means that there was a task that was supposed to happen and it didn't happen. So those are missed tasks. So you can go into this note now and you can figure out who the solicitor is. It's Sabine, and she's not keeping up with this. So clearly a conversation with Sabine needs to be had about staying on top of these tasks and making sure that we're going through it and being the best possible solicitor for this major gift for Boba Fett. We can also see what the next steps are. There's supposed to be a follow-up card that's sent and we don't have a due date for it. So that means that we have not sent the follow-up card. It means that a task isn't set out specifically for that, but that is in fact the next step. So now that we have an idea of what this looks like, we can go in and we can report on this. So if we go into our reports, you can see I have a whole bunch of reports here, including a cultivation list, grant reports. I can also do a report for my major gift prospects because we're creating a constituent code for them. And so we can go in here and we can create reports for people who have open cultivation plans. So if we do a notes report, we can see every single note that's in here. But the other nice thing that we can do is we can filter on this. So we can come in here and I can do things like the note subject. If we scroll down, we can find that. And well, the note. So the note contains, and we want to see everything that says open. So I want all of my open opportunities. So right now we have 3. Let's see that I only want to include people who have a solicitor of Sabine. So I can do solicitor, and I can pull up all of Sabine's solicitors. So she has 2 here. We didn't tag her on the new Nora note, which is why that one's not pulling in. But nice things that we can do here, we can add columns. So I can do a column for solicitor. I can do one for target ask and target ask date. I can do one for what stage we're in. I can do one for anything that we have created a custom field for. So we can see these open opportunities. It's Sabine. This one doesn't have a target ask date or a target ask amount. So again, we probably need to check in with Sabine to find out why she's not filling things out, or with our data entry person to find this out. But we can see up here for Ahsoka that we have a target ask date, a target ask amount. Sabine's the solicitor, and we can quickly look down and see where we are in the stage because we can see that the impact area was determined, but cultivation hasn't started. So we don't have anything next. So there is no next stage. Down here, if you look through, you can see the send follow-up card is that next step, but there's no date. So this is that active step. So we know that's that next step. We don't know when it's being completed. So you can ask questions about that. You can also just right click in and you can go take a look at this and you can find out what's going on with it. So you can say, okay, so this happened in March, nothing's happened yet. Any of your admins can see all of your tasks and go in and find out, is there even a task created? There's not. So again, that's a really nice conversation that you can have. That's a really nice way to keep on top of it, to be able to report out to whoever the stakeholders are in this, and to manage your portfolio. Something else that you can do that's really helpful is for each of your solicitors, you can create a tasks report and have it sent to them weekly, monthly, daily, however often you want it sent. So if we come in and we do a new task report, I'm going to say that we're going to look at Leia because, again, we don't have one specifically for Sabine. So we're going to come into user is Leia, and it's going to pull up all of her tasks. We can also say, is active or is overdue, whatever you want to filter on. Um, Due date is next month, next week, all of that. You would save this, so we can call this task report for Leia, and we can do it again, monthly, weekly, daily. You pick your preference on how often to send it. And then we can save and schedule this report. So we can select that frequency. So you have daily, weekly, monthly, once. We're going to say weekly. And we want it to land in their inbox on Monday. And we want it to hit first thing in the morning. So if we were doing it this way, we would say, tasks are due this week. And then you choose your recipient. If your recipient doesn't have access to Bloomerang, you can still send it. Again, this button up here, require Bloomerang login to view report, is something you can press, but if you were going to send it to a solicitor without Bloomerang, there would be no reason to do that. This subject box is from your email. So this is what will show up on the email subject. So probably something like tasks due this week or due this month, whatever you want it to be. And then the content is what the body of your email is. So you can say, here's the list of all of your tasks to do this week, or hey, make sure you stay on top of this, or ask if you have any questions, whatever you want to write in this box, you can. And then you can click the if there are no results, don't send an email. For something like this, I wouldn't recommend that, because if there should be tasks and the task report is coming up blank, that can be a really good double check on why those tasks weren't made. And again, can really help to keep people on top of things. You would then hit the save and schedule button here, and it will send out to Leia every week on Monday at 8 a.m. And then once it has been scheduled, you'll see this little green box, and it'll tell you how often it's coming out. And then you can click in, you can take a look at it, you can modify it, change the name, whatever you need to do to your reports, and the adjustments will stay on that schedule. You can also change the schedule. So that is the workflow for tracking your major gifts. If you wanted to add the pledge, let's say for Nora, we are going to add that pledge, we can come in here and we'll do a new pledge. We would set the date for that date that we're going to make that ask, so 11/15, and the amount we said we're asking for $10,000. We are going to be asking her for the Veteran Rebel Fund. Again, we know she's interested in veterans. Our campaign is Veterans of the Rebellion, and our appeal is going to be that major gift ask. So again, we can exclude it. I'm going to say there's no auto payment, and we're going to go in and create the schedule. So the first installment we'll say is due 12/1/2021. Frequency, I'm going to just say yearly, because we don't know what that looks like, and we can always go in and adjust that later. And the installment amount is going to be $10,000. And we'll generate the installments, and you see it creates one installment. Potentially she'll do it in a couple, and again, we can adjust that if need be, but this is what we're going to set up initially. So then you'll see that pledge, and you'll see right away that it's a major gift ask. So it's easy to exclude anything with that appeal on it. It's easy to see that we don't have anything, coming up on that, why it's in there, where it's going to. So that is how we do things in Bloomerang.
Thanks so much, Di. That was a lot of wonderful information, and we have a lot of great questions
Okay.
from our friends here. First, can you go back to your constituent custom fields?
Mm-hmm.
And is this solicitor area where you assign prospects to the staff, or does this reflect board solicitors, or where do you put each of those things?
Yeah, so your solicitors is whoever is kind of in charge of that record is going to be making the ask, is going to be building that relationship. So you can add any solicitors that you need to that section. If it's staff members, add the staff members. If it's board members, you can add your board members.
Great. And when certain moves happen, so for example, when you receive the gift, you update all of your notes and custom fields, for example, if it was won, and things like that, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Wonderful. Um, would you be able to generate a report to include the solicitor target ask date, target ask, and then the current stage of moves management?
Absolutely. Oh, not a constituent. We need a notes report. All
Wonderful.
right.
And that's a good point, that it's a notes report that you need.
Yep. So we wanted the current stage. We wanted the target ask date, target ask amount, and the solicitor. And so you can see a whole bunch of these are blank. They're not all moves management notes. So we can go in and say, that note is open, for example, and this will give us all of our open opportunities with all of that information in there. And then anything that's blank still needs to be filled out.
Awesome. And if you would like that to go to your inbox, you can just schedule it to be sent to your inbox or anyone else's inbox.
Absolutely.
Can you clarify or recap what is the order of operations or the workflow? When do you write the note versus the task versus the interaction?
Absolutely. So the first thing to do is generate the note and generate that plan in there so that you have the idea of what the steps are. So once you have that established, then you are going to go in and add what that next move is. So what that next step is, and then don't add a date until it's complete. So once you've added that next step, you're going to go in, create your task for the due date that it needs to happen. And then when that task is complete, you're going to save it as an interaction if it's an interaction, and you're going to update your note. Again, that step of updating your note, just make sure that anyone who's pulling a notes report like the one on my screen can see the due date, that date that it happened, and what that next step is. So it's just kind of that cycle. So update your note, create the task, complete the task, update your note, add that next move, create that task, save it as that interaction, go back and update your note, add your next step. So that's that workflow.
Wonderful. And can you clarify again about stewardship? So is stewardship any action after a gift is made, no matter when it was made? Or is stewardship time dependent and then actions become cultivation when it's time to renew a gift or ask again?
Great question. And that's what we're moving on to next after this question section. But yes, it's after that major gift, and then you'll be in that stewardship phase. Dependent on when you're planning to make that next ask. If you're asking next year, then it'll basically be up until you start that next move. If it's a couple years out, some people will steward that gift for 6 months to a year, depending on the size, and then just kind of put them back into general rotation until they're ready to start asking for that next big ask.
Wonderful. Let's jump on to the next section.
All right. so donor stewardship. So this is the last really major piece that we're going to talk about. I know I've already summarized it, but I think it is worth giving a few more details here. So it really is imperative that you are stewarding your prospect. So even if you didn't secure the gift, you should still be working with them. So some people at that point call it cultivation again because you didn't get that big ask. Some people do consider it stewardship. You've been courting them this whole time. Just because someone says no to an engagement now doesn't mean they'll say no later. So back to that analogy, it really does depend on that relationship and why the no happened. If you're going to be stewarding them, if it was a no. So we're going to start with what you do if you've secured the gift. So the most important thing to do is acknowledge that gift. And you should probably work with your donor on how they would like to be recognized, and then scale that appropriately. So if, for example, it's a transformational gift, it might be big enough that a press release is appropriate. Um, Not always. They may not want that. They might want it to remain anonymous. So make sure you talk to them about that. For a large major gift, so something larger than like, uh, you know, 1,000 to 5,000. So a larger major gift, whatever you scale that as. Publishing a thank you on your website or in social media, making a special note in your annual report, or if you have a newsletter, that might be kind of the perfect way to share the news that you secured the gift, to really publicly thank your donor and make sure that they feel, like they've made that impact. They feel like you truly are appreciative for that gift. As I kind of mentioned, some donors do want to stay anonymous, or they may just not like a lot of attention. So a public announcement may not be the best way to go. Um, with that said, make sure at least one member of the organization besides their solicitor thanks them for it personally. So a call or a handwritten thank you letter, or a meeting with the board president or the executive director, or somebody else, a major gifts officer, if it was the development director that secured the gift, just someone else says thank you to them. And then always make sure that you're mailing them that receipt, that written acknowledgement. So do that on top of the public announcement if you're going to be making a public acknowledgement there. Um, and then the next thing that you need to do is keep them informed of the impact their gift is having. So depending on what the gift is, that might look different. And depending on what's going on in the world, that might look different too. So a couple of examples. If they gave a donation to turn a piece of land into a park or a playground, send them pictures, the before, the during, the after, so that they can see that. If you can bring them on site for the grand opening, especially if it's something like a playground, the first time the kids get to play on it. That can be a really impactful moment. They can really see truly and immediately what the impact of that gift is. If they gave a gift to bring in some new equipment for what you're doing, send them a picture of the new setup, or again, if you can bring them in safely, bring them in so they can see it. If they give an unrestricted gift, have staff members who run different programs send them personal thank you cards, and to let them know that a lot of stress has been taken off of them because now their program isn't going to lose funding. Or even better, depending on the populations you serve, having a member of the population who's been impacted by the gift say thank you, again, can be really, really impactful. So it's really, really important that they're actually tangibly seeing what their money is doing, what that gift means. And then one of my favorite things about constituents who truly feel connected to the organization and excited about the mission and the impact that their giving is doing, um, they can become what I like to call secret solicitors. So you haven't asked them directly or indirectly necessarily to solicit on behalf of the organization, but they're doing it anyway. They're proud, they're excited, and they naturally want to get other people involved. So they can be really great candidates for different leadership opportunities that you have. So things like being on the board or special committees, program volunteers. Um, and what they're going to do is they're going to end up bringing their friends and family into the fold, and they're going to make introductions. They're going to post on social media what they did. They're going to talk about it with coworkers, and that can really have a ripple effect. So that level of excitement can be a great indicator of when it's appropriate to start cultivating them for that next major gift, especially if they start asking questions such as, well, that was great, but what would it take to do X? What would it take to, um, build a bigger park for the kids? What would it take to expand this lab? What would it take to expand this programming? That probably means that they're open to, another large donation, or they're willing to become a solicitor or an ambassador, and get other people to donate to what they see as important, and that kind of becomes less of a secret solicitor and more of just a solicitor. But that's a conversation you can have that can be part of that cultivation process of, well, it would take $50,000. Are you willing to help us raise that $50,000? That can create solicitation opportunities for them as well, which is a form of leadership. Um, so now talking about if we didn't secure the gift. So it's important to assess what went wrong and why. It might be something really simple like now's not a good time, or we just gave another one, or I just lost my job because of COVID. And we can talk about this later. So if you're picking it up later, make sure that that solicitor maintains the relationship, continues to cultivate that relationship. Um, if it's a flat no, you should probably do a full postmortem, figure out what went wrong. Um, but either way, discuss, annual fund giving, get them back into your appeal circulation quickly. This may be someone who can't do a major gift right now, but could do a gift upgrade, or they might be a good fit for recurring giving. So you can really have that conversation. And then if they decide to give in another capacity, steward that. So make that acknowledgement, have someone else say thank you, keep them in your good graces, but just for that much shorter period of time. And like I had said, just because it's a no right now doesn't mean it's a no forever. So make sure that you're maintaining that relationship. And I know we're butting up against time here, but I did want to circle back around to donor retention for a minute. So donor retention can temporarily take a hit as you pursue major donors. But after that opportunity is closed, make sure you're entering them back into your annual efforts, probably 6 months to a year after they've made that gift. If they're making a year over year pledge, so for example, a 5-year pledge, wait until year 6 to get them back into that circulation. If they are making a large pledge payment every year or every quarter, however they're paying it, you don't also want to ask them for additional gifts on top of that. You don't want your major donors to think that all you see them as is dollar signs. Um, and you can run that risk if you're doing too many asks on top of trying to cultivate them for a major gift than making that major gift ask. So that is why that plan is so important. That's why strategy is important. And that's why making sure that everybody at the organization is on board and understands what this takes. So we do have resources here specific for major giving. And we do have some other resources. So in the month of June, we do have 50% off batch screens. That's part of Donor Search, and it can give you some really good additional information on your major gift prospects or help you identify those prospects. And then we do have the Identifying Major Gifts Prospects class and Tracking Planned Gifts class. And it looks like Diana just launched a poll. So if you would like more information, go ahead and click the yes, please, and we'll put you in touch with the customer accounts team, and they'll be able to get you more information on that. And that is about it. Do we have anything, Diana, that you think would be helpful for live Q&A? I know we're over time. I'm so sorry about that.
No worries. That was a lot of great information, and we love getting questions from everyone as well. We do have one question here. Abby says, I'm sure this is different for each donor, but is there a recommended amount of time between cultivation activities?
It's different for each donor and what that activity was. And I wish I had a better answer for that. But just make sure that your solicitors are following up within a reasonable amount of time. It doesn't always have to be in person. It doesn't always have to be handwritten. It can just be a check-in email. You don't want to, overdo it. Again, think of it like dating. Like you don't want to be too anxious and eager. So just kind of feel it out. Um, you know, make sure that you're recording it every time, even if your prospect is reaching out to your solicitor or to the organization. Make sure you're recording that. That can be an indicator that they want more contact. And so you can kind of scale it based on that.
Absolutely. And if anyone would like to share in the chat as well, with what kind of samples what kind of activities or cultivation activities, and if there was a time frame that worked well for them, please do so as well. That's one thing I love about the community, is just everyone's willing to share their experience and insights with everyone. So please feel free to do that. And it looks like we were able to answer all of our questions today. If you guys and gals have any additional questions that you would like to ask, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can reach out to our support team via email or via chat. I promise you're going to get a real person right away, and they will be more than happy to help. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. Thank you, Di, for again, so much great information that we have today. And we hope that we see you all in another Academy class soon. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye.